Have you ever felt that just when you're about to achieve something great, something inexplicable happens and everything falls apart? It seems like the moment you're closest to a personal or professional victory, some invisible force pulls the emergency brake. It may sound controversial, but the biggest enemy to your success could be yourself. Sounds counterintuitive, right? After all, why would anyone sabotage their own achievements? But the truth is, self-sabotage is sneaky and affects more people than we imagine. The worst part? Most of the time, it operates without us even realizing it. And before you think you're alone in this, know that there is a solution, and it's closer than you think. Want to understand how this all works, and, more importantly, how to break this destructive cycle? Then you're in the right place. When we talk about self-sabotage, most people don't even realize it's happening. Have you ever noticed how, in certain areas of your life, it seems like you're always one step away from achieving something great, but suddenly everything collapses? My friend, that's self-sabotage in action. It hides in small moments, in seemingly harmless choices, but deep down, these are decisions that stop us from progressing. And the most curious part? Often we don't even know why it's happening. It's impressive how self-sabotage can undermine both our personal and professional lives without making a fuss. You could be working hard, setting goals, but when you get close to an objective, something happens that pulls the emergency brake. The cause of this rarely lies on the surface. In fact, the problem is usually rooted deep in our minds, hidden in automatic behaviors we repeat without noticing. The worst part is that without awareness of what's behind these actions, we keep repeating the cycle. It's like being on a treadmill, always running, but never getting anywhere. Life passes by and the patterns of self-sabotage intensify. But first, you need to look inward. Understanding how and why these mechanisms are established could be the first step to breaking this chain. Let's dive deeper into understanding what it means to be yourself, because that's where the real transformation begins. Understanding the self is a challenge that seems simple, but in reality, it's one of the most complex we face. Psychology and neuroscience are always trying to define what truly makes up our identity. But honestly, it's much deeper than labels like profession, age, or even the roles we play in life. The self transcends the superficial. It's the sum of experiences, emotions, and choices we often make without realizing, driven by impulses from parts of us we barely know. Think about it. How many times have you defined yourself by what you do, as if that were the essence of who you are? I'm an engineer. I'm a mother. I'm an entrepreneur. But does that really reflect the totality of your being? The truth is, we cling to these labels because they're easy to understand, but they limit our perception of ourselves. The inner self goes far beyond a simple title or role, and the sooner we understand this, the closer we'll be to avoiding behaviors that lead to self-sabotage. What's interesting is that when we dive deeper into our identity, we start to see the reasons behind our actions. Science shows that our brain creates patterns, and many of them come from the need for protection or avoiding discomfort. The problem is that these patterns are often the ones that block us. Let's explore this issue of identity further, and perhaps discover how your daily choices are being shaped by an incomplete definition of who you really are. The question, "Who are you?" might seem simple, but when we really stop to think about it, we realize how difficult it is to answer. Most of us get lost in external definitions like our occupation, social status, or even our personal tastes. But who are we beyond these labels? This is a deep reflection that many avoid precisely because the answer requires us to confront parts of ourselves we might not know well or prefer to ignore. Many times our actions are guided by a self that was shaped by the expectations of others. Think about it. Are you living according to what you really want? Or are you just going with the flow of what you've been taught? This is a powerful question because seeking the answer can help us begin to free ourselves from the traps of self-sabotage. When we know who we truly are, our choices start to reflect that essence instead of automatic patterns that hold us back. And it's not about finding a definitive answer to this question. Who you are is constantly evolving. But the simple act of reflecting on it is already progress. When you start questioning the reasons for your actions and motivations, new possibilities emerge. And that's when we begin to notice the inconsistencies that lead us to sabotage our own dreams and goals. Let's look more closely at these inconsistencies to understand how they impact your daily life. 4. The inconsistencies in our lives often go unnoticed, but they are the perfect fuel for self-sabotage. When we live in a way that's out of alignment with who we truly are, we end up creating gaps between our intentions and our actions. For example, have you ever promised yourself you were going to change a habit, like exercising regularly, but then gave up at the first sign of difficulty? These inconsistencies aren't mere slip-ups, but a reflection that something deeper is happening. The point is, when we force ourselves to live in a way that doesn't align with our true nature, the brain rebels. It's almost as if there's an internal defense system saying, "This isn't you," and the result? Sabotaging behaviors emerge. You might be working as hard as you can, but if your actions aren't aligned with your nature, frustration arises, and along with it, the urge to give up. And this is the trap. We believe we're failing when, in reality, we're just acting against our own nature. That's why it's crucial to identify these inconsistencies and understand where they come from. Often, they are the result of external expectations, social pressures, or even limiting beliefs we've acquired throughout life. By recognizing these patterns, we begin to unravel the reasons why we sabotage our own achievements. But to do this, we need to look at our daily habits and the context we live in. Let's delve deeper into how the environment influences these behaviors in the next section. Our habits are largely shaped by the environment we live in. It's incredible how the context around us directly influences our choices, often without us realizing it. For example, think about how much easier it is to give in to temptations like eating poorly or procrastinating when we're in a disorganized or distraction-filled environment. What's curious is that instead of blaming the context, we usually blame ourselves for a lack of willpower. But the truth is, the environment is a great enabler or saboteur of our habits. This is where the need to adjust your surroundings comes into play, so they work in your favor. If you want to stop eating junk food, why keep the fridge full of sweets and sodas? Or if the goal is to be more productive, what are you doing with your phone always within reach, ready to distract you? The key is to set up your environment in a way that supports your goals. A practical example? Transform your workspace into a place free from distractions. Organize the kitchen so healthy food is always accessible, or create morning routines that make it easier to stick to new habits. The power of context is so strong that it can literally shape your behavior without you needing to exert much mental effort. By understanding this, self-sabotage starts to lose its grip. Of course, it's essential to recognize that it's not just the environment that counts, but also how you respond to it. The next step is to understand how our attention, or lack thereof, can amplify this process, especially in disorganized and chaotic environments. Attention is a precious currency today, and the curious thing is that we often don't even realize how easily it gets scattered. In a disorganized environment with multiple distractions, our ability to focus is almost annihilated. Have you noticed how your mind starts jumping from one thought to another when the space around you is filled with things happening? That's no coincidence. The brain, in a chaotic setting, has difficulty concentrating, and this can generate a constant sense of frustration, directly contributing to self-sabotage. The problem with fragmented focus is that it puts us in a cycle of inefficiency. You try to start a task but soon get distracted by a notification or random thought, and before you know it, the day is over, and little has been accomplished. This cycle leads us to believe we're incapable of finishing anything, which only reinforces self-sabotaging behaviors. To break free from this trap, it's crucial to create ideal conditions for focus, which involves both eliminating distractions and creating moments of rest for the brain to recover. A practical strategy is the famous Pomodoro method. Focus intensely for 25 minutes, followed by a short break. This allows the brain to maintain concentration on specific tasks without burning out quickly. Another tip is to organize your workspace so that only what's necessary for the task at hand is visible. Small adjustments like these can make a huge difference. now that we understand the role of attention in the sabotage process. The next step is to discover how we can improve it through a better understanding of ourselves. Keeping focus in a world full of distractions may seem like a lost battle, right? We live in a time where every notification on your phone seems to have the power to completely throw you off track. And the most frustrating part is that the more disorganized the environment around you, the harder it is to maintain focus. This creates a vicious cycle of self-sabotage, because the more we get distracted, the more we feel like we're failing. And this constant feeling of failure only fuels sabotaging behaviors. Have you ever tried working or studying in a completely messy space? The mind becomes as agitated as the environment, making it almost impossible to focus on any task. That's because the brain is highly influenced by what it sees. If what it sees is chaos, it responds with confusion. So an important step to improve focus is organizing the environment, removing visual distractions, and creating a space that conveys calm and clarity. And of course, it's not just about physical organization. It's also about mentally organizing your priorities, setting clear and achievable goals. Focus isn't just about avoiding external distractions, but about cultivating the ability to prioritize what's truly important. When we learn to do this, we begin to realize that much of our self-sabotage comes from an inability to stay focused on our main goals. But how to take the first step? Self-knowledge is the answer. Let's now explore how this deep understanding of yourself can be the turning point to leaving behind sabotaging patterns. The first step to overcoming self-sabotage is the most important: self-knowledge. There's no point in trying to correct a behavior if you don't understand what's causing it. And here's the secret: self-sabotage is usually rooted in old beliefs and thought patterns that aren't always visible. That's why taking time to look inward is essential. A powerful tool for this is therapy. But if that's not an option right now, self-reflection can also be an effective path. Ask yourself honestly what's behind your actions. This process of reflection can be challenging. After all, we often avoid facing certain truths about ourselves. But the sooner you confront these patterns, the faster you can rewrite your story. Simple practices like keeping a journal or doing guided meditations can help clarify your thoughts. Additionally, seeking out readings that deepen the topic can be extremely helpful. Books like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, for example, offer valuable insights into how habits are formed and how we can change them to our benefit. Once you start understanding what lies at the heart of self-sabotage, the path to change becomes clearer. Small adjustments in how you view your goals, reorganizing your environment, and cultivating new routines can make a huge difference. But the journey doesn't stop here. There's always more to learn and more to explore, such as educational resources that go beyond theory and help you understand how the brain works, especially when it comes to emotional processing. Let's see how these resources can make a difference. So now that you understand how self-sabotage works, the question that remains is, what are you going to do about it? Will you keep letting these hidden patterns take control of your decisions, or will you take control of your life? Remember, change starts with self-knowledge and small daily actions. What's the first step you can take today to break this cycle? Maybe it's reevaluating your habits, better organizing your environment, or even seeking specialized help. No matter the size of the step, the important thing is to start. And if you're committed to this transformation, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We have much more content that will help you understand and overcome these internal challenges. After all, every great success begins with a decision, and that decision can be made now.